Good evening, everyone. This is my Module 5 final project for Hawaii Online Courses Psychology Spring 2023 semester. I'm submitting this to Mr. Nathan Shamron. Um, and this is projects about psychological disorders and their treatment. So, getting to the itinerary, we have just our title slide that we just saw. Our index spanning from pages 2 to 5. Just a bookmark where what is and in what sequence. We'll begin with slide 6 with a basic introduction, general overview of what we will discuss. To slide 7, a basic history of what psychological disorders have been and what they have not been classified as. Um, page Slide 8 being classifications, showing how we use modern tools to classify disorders. Uh, Slide 9, comparing anxiety and mood disorders, concerning what the differences between the two. Personality, dissociative, and schizophrenic disorders, explaining what they are and highlighting their differences. Slide 11, the overview of treatment, telling you what the types of treatments methods are available. Step 12, or slide 12, psychotherapy, which is basically one of the methods that are presented in sorry, in slide 11. Then we go from our conclusion and finally my reflection of this class. So basically, an introduction to psychological disorders is why should we understand them? Understanding psychological disorders is very important because although not diagnosed most times because of like lack of severity or concern to like how dangerous it can be, it affects 1 in 5. Um, what do they do specifically? Psychological disorders impairs a person's daily life, including their ability to work, socialize, and maintain their relationships. Like, say, a person with social anxiety would kind of just shell away and not be able to interact, or depressive disorders would kind of also do the same, but for different reasons. Or maybe manic disorders would cause people to shy away from a person because of how versatile their personality can be. Why should we study it? Studying psychological disorders and treatments that can help individuals gain a better understanding of themselves and others leads to improved communication and empathy. Um, in my interpretation personally, it's like through understanding how things can work or how they have worked before, we can better communicate to others and it brings a better sense of closeness. And the results of studying this are by studying these disorders, we can learn about the various treatment options available and how to effectively address mental issues in our communities. So, going on to the history of psychological disorders, throughout history, people have attempted to treat psychological disorders, whether that be through like exorcisms or they could be through like say radical methods like even for physical disorders, they would use those methods to try to like cure mental demons. Like ancient civilizations such as Greece, Rome, even Egypt had come to believe that disorders of the mind were caused by evil spirits or demonic possession. Moving on to modern era, in the Middle Ages, people. believe that mental illness was like some sort of divine punishment for sinning or not following the rules of the church and causing you to be afflicted by mental illness. Like an explicit reference to this would be Deuteronomy 28 and 28. It's like you will be afflicted with madness, stillness of the heart, etc. And moving on towards the 1800s, uh, mental health professionals had like began to develop more scientific approaches to understanding these disorders, mostly as a result of other fields coming to modernize and go more, I guess, heretic as opposed to the church's beliefs on these. Because around here is also when Darwin made his discoveries about evolution. Now, going to classifying disorders, we have it's basically like one of the most important tools that we can use to understand psychological disorders. Um, like the DSM, Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, is a manual used by mental health professionals to diagnose and classify mental disorders. And I'm sorry, um, the DSM categorizes different disorders into different categories, like anxiety disorders into theirs, mood disorders into their section, and personality disorders into others. Although it's still being developed, and the sixth edition is still being currently written. Going on to editions or variations of this, there's been five versions so far. DSM one is in 1952, DSM two 1968, DSM 3 1980, DSM 4 1994, and DSM 5 as of 2013. Um, Even though it says five, there's many different variations of in these five, but they continue to change and grow as more arguments and beliefs are solidified and codified into writing. Like say complex post traumatic stress disorder is still being debated on with psychologists today. Now, moving on to anxieties and mood disorders. Mood disorders, well, going in order, anxiety disorders are characterized by excessive fear, worry, apprehension. So, like GAD, generalized anxiety disorder, PD, panic disorder, and phobias cause anxiety. It's like a giant fear or worry of like what could happen. Now, mood disorders, on the other hand, are characterized by disturbances in the mood, depression, bipolar disorder, and say treatments for these disorders may include therapy, medication, and lifestyle changes. Now, note that both of these can include medication, because it's part of the biomedical path of treatment that we'll discuss later. Now, personality dissociative and schizophrenic disorders are three different types of disorders. And going in order, personality disorders would be a group of mental illnesses that involve long term patterns of behavior that are generally unhealthy and inflexible, very rigid, like robotic, even. It's like very cyclical. Then dissociative disorders involve like disruptions and changes in memory. Like you could dissociate in like a classroom per se, and you just kind of like zone out, or like you feel like you're in a different world, or the time pauses and you're just kind of in your own space. And it causes a lot of issues with identity because people feel very disconnected from the world around them. Now, for schizophrenic disorders, schizophrenia is like a chronic and severe mental disorder that affects how a person thinks, feels, and behaves. It varies. It's very, I mean, like diverse in how it can afflict a person, as goes for the others as well. But it's hard to describe. And treatment for these are complex and involves kind of like a combo mix of like therapy and meds. Now for treatment, the psychological aspect is that psychological treatments include cognitive behavioral therapy, psychoanalysis, humanistic therapy, and group therapy. Although I just kind of stated all these different routes of treatment, they're all just types of treatment that involve talking to professionals to identify and modify negative thought patterns. It's like having well, in my experience, like a person that you can express yourself to, and I guess they relay your thoughts back or try to help you uncover the systems behind them. And usually through methods such as cognitive behavioral therapy. And all that to again change your thought processes that may be contributing to your disorder. And for biomedical aspects, biomedical treatments are just like medications. Like, say, psychological would be going to a psychologist, while biomedical would be going to a psychiatrist, having a bit of psychological aspect, but they would be the ones to have prescribed you or recommended you for various types of physical treatment that would probably alter your brain chemistry. Um, Examples of this would be antidepressants, SSRIs, tricyclics, antipsychotics, electroconvulsive therapy, electroconvulsive therapy, and transcranial magnetic stimulation, TMS. So you'd have to go see like a psychiatrist or your primary care provider for them to have recommended you to this level. Because you first have to be seen by psychology, or even if you go to a psychiatrist, they'd have to evaluate your mental state before they can recommend you to here. So yeah, like these treatments are technically provided by medical doctors such as psychiatrists, neurologists, rather than just psychologists or other mental health professionals. Ultimately, the type of treatment an individual receives will depend on their specific needs and severity of their condition. Now, going on to psychotherapy, psychotherapy involves a variety of approaches to treating psychological disorders. CBT focuses on changing negative patterns of thinking and behavior. Psychodynamic therapy focuses on understanding the unconscious influences on behavior and emotions. Humanistic therapy emphasizes their personal growth and self acceptance. And other forms of therapy include group therapy, family therapy, and more. Generally, you wouldn't see any of these methods being used independently, as treatment comes as like a conjunction of different methods being used to achieve a common goal. Like, you could introduce cognitive behavioral therapy to a person, and they would I guess it's like, just like measuring out their assumptions about the world, going out to enact on those assumptions and confirm or deny if they're right, like a scientific method, like hypothesis, experimentation, conclusion. Um, and you do that like repetitively until your original thought has either disappeared or you have disbelief in it, and you use that like in conjunction with humanistic therapy to like use it as a metric for your personal growth over time, and then to like even discover how to address the cognitive behavioral therapy, you'd need psychodynamic therapy to just sit down and address how or why you think the way you do. And it's really odd, but that's been my experience with it. So my insights on this unit in general would be that psychological disorders can be challenging, but with the right treatments and support, most people can learn how to manage their symptoms and lead fulfilling lives. Um, do note though, it's like you not all people can follow basic self-care, but to a degree most of us can. Now, it's important to seek help from a mental health professional if you someone you know is struggling with a psychological disorder, and also to note mental health is just as important as physical health, and seeking treatment is a sign of strength, not weakness. Just like as a reminder to anyone besides Mr. Lim that's watching this. Now, for this course in general, I'm just read off the slide directly. I've learned a lot about the study of psychology throughout the duration of the course. It's a subject that's allowed me to better converse with my peers, my friends, my family, and even my own psychologist. This class has provided me with the resources and a mentor that has enabled me to broaden my worldview through understanding and comprehension of the myriad possibilities of events that could occur in anyone's mind and the functions and systems behind them. Moreover, I believe the lessons provided could be useful in enhancing one's understanding of psychological disorders and their treatment. The outline and explanations provided for different topics covered could serve as a starting point for further research and understanding. Additionally, the different perspectives and historical backgrounds provided and reviewed could help contextualize and appreciate the current state of psychology and mental health treatments. Despite the practicality of the information learned, I want to make a disclaimer that it should not be used as a substitute for professional advice or diagnosis. If available, if available, very, very great underline on if available. Um, and overall, I believe my experience in this virtual classroom highlights the importance of continuing to learn and engage with the field of psychology. And by staying informed on its history, current developments, and practical applications, we all, as students and educators, can work towards promoting better mental health and well-being for all individuals. Thank you.